And I, as your loyal and cheerful first mate, welcome aboard the USS Focal Point. It's an honor and a privilege to welcome back to our listener line, our guest line, our newsmaker line, Senator Jim Inhofe from the great state of Oklahoma, the state of my birth. Senator Inhofe, welcome to Focal Point with Bryan Fischer.
Well, hi, Brian. Nice to be back with you.
It's great to have you on, Senator. I really appreciate you taking time to be with us. A couple things I wanted to chat about with you. I know your time is short. We want to make maximum use of it. I was talking in the first half hour today about this BP spill and the president's reaction, the administration's reaction, the boot on the neck reaction to force BP to cough up this $20 billion escrow account, and played a soundbite from Representative Joe Barton from the state of Texas today where he just calls this thing a shakedown. I wanted to get your take on Representative Barton's comments on how the administration is conducting themselves with regard to BP right now. Senator Inhofe?
I'm sorry, Brian. I thought you were going to play something.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I just kind of summarized it.
Well, let me just share with you my thoughts. I'm no fan of BP, and I was listening as I was waiting to talk to you, and you're talking about their contributions to the various funds and all that. BP has never been a very good friend of conservatives. In fact, they were actually behind the scenes with Kerry and Lieberman trying to do a cap-and-trade bill, trying to work out a deal where they'd be exempted. I'm just not a fan of BPs. Now, how the president did this, I have no, I don't probably wouldn't have done it the same way. I want to make sure that BP is financially responsible for damage that they have done. Now, how he went about doing it, I was not in on that, obviously, so I don't know, and quite frankly, I'm not sure what my friend Joe Barton said.
Yeah, well, I think what Joe Barton was talking about is that the president essentially forced them. He informed them that they were going to put this $20 billion in this escrow account, and I certainly agree with you with regard to BP. I mean, they essentially wrote that Kerry Lieberman bill. They're lobbyists, and it's because they're heavy into alternative sources of energy, so I think they were looking for a big payday.
Oh, yeah, they could benefit from that thing.
Oh, yeah. But the thing that concerned me is the way the president went about this, sort of forcing BP as a private corporation to cough up this money. No due process, no processing of these claims in court. It's one thing for BP as a private company to offer to settle these claims, and they've been pretty aggressive about doing that. But then to have our president just go and say, we're just going to take this money from you with no due process. I just kind of found that rather alarming.
I want to be sure, Brian, that their feet are held to the fire. Now, they have said several times that they are going to be responsible for all of the damages.
Yes.
Now, one of the things that I've done on the floor, because no one else is willing to do it, is object to the increase in the cap. Right now, it does need to be increased. If you'll remember, there's been a lot of publicity about this having been set back during the Exxon Valdez days 20 years ago. It needs to be set up, but if you take it out completely, then you're going to have, that'll be the greatest boon for companies like BP and the five giants and the government-run oil companies. And the big difference here is that we've got to keep producing our resources. We have the largest recoverable reserve of oil and gas and coal in America. And, Brian, this will shock a lot of people who are listening to us. If we would take all of the inhibitions, all of the restrictions the Democrats have put on our ability to export our own resources, we could be completely free of dependence on the Middle East and be only North America dependent. Now, that doesn't directly address the method they're using to make sure that BP pays. Quite frankly, I think they've already said they're willing to pay for everything, and they've even talked about perhaps that could be bankruptcy.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe the policy and the way they did it was wrong, but I've not been a friend of BP's for a long period of time. In fact, on the Senate floor the other day, this week, I said, all these Democrats saying that Republicans are products of big oil and all that. When big oil, the biggest oil, like BP, they pour their money into Democrat campaigns, not Republican campaigns.
Well, in fact, they gave more money to President Obama than any other candidate over the last 20 years. So.
Okay, that's true, and that's for president, but back when he was running in '04 for the Senate for the first time. They gave him 3 times as much as the contribution that they gave my campaign, and which wasn't even solicited. There's such a misunderstanding on this. Right now, we have such a huge amount of resources that we can spend, and all these cap and traders are trying to take away our ability to run this machine called America. And a handful of oil companies are with them, and they're ones that can benefit from this. And certainly at the top of that list is BP. So I don't know. I might find a difference with you for the first time on this. I don't know what he did as far as the shakedown is concerned. I want to make sure that BP pays for the damages that they incurred. I think we're finding out, and I'm kind of surprised at this, that there were some shortcuts taken, that the other companies now, the other 4 of the 5 big companies, testified that they did not follow the same practices, and it would have precluded this from happening. That is yet to be seen.
Well, and I think Halliburton was one of the ones. I guess there are these things called centralizers that they use to stabilize the well pipe. And Halliburton was recommending that BP use 21 of those, and BP says, no, we can do it with 6.
That's what I heard.
And that was one of the contributing factors to the explosion. So Halliburton is the good guy in all of this, but you don't hear about that in the mainstream
media. No, you won't
media.
hear that from this administration.
No, you certainly won't.
But this thing is horrible down there. But the main concern I have is I knew, well, let me say, 20 years ago, I went up to Exxon Valdez right after that happened, and up there the far-left environmentalists were celebrating. They were cheering. They were popping the corks. And I said, what in the world are you doing? He said, well, we're going to parlay this into stopping production on the North Slope. And I said, wait a minute. This is not a production accident. This is a transportation accident. And if you stop our ability to provide to develop our own resources, that means we're going to have to transport it more, and something like this would be greater to happen. They said, we don't care. We just want to stop them from drilling from oil everywhere. Right. And that's the same thing that I see going on in the Gulf today. Can anyone listening to us right now, if you can, you call my office and tell me, because I don't believe it's true, that there's any relationship between the tragedy in the Gulf and promoting a cap and trade type of legislation. Well, there is none. And by the way, I have to say this. I think I said it on your program before, because I've been saying it for about 6 weeks. Cap and trade is dead. It's gone. Those people are in denial. I know the president feels an obligation to the far left, MoveOn.org, George Soros, Michael Moore, and all the Hollywood elites. But and so they have to put on a good front. But it's dead and buried.
You know, it reminded me, when you talk about the Exxon Valdez, it reminded me of what Rahm Emanuel said. We played that soundbite earlier in the program. You never let a serious crisis go to waste.
I know it.
And even Jay Leno the other night was saying, hey, instead of using the Gulf oil spill to advance your agenda, how about using the Gulf oil spill crisis to stop the Gulf oil spill? Let's stick to business instead of using this as a front for an agenda.
And I was very critical of all the hearings, the committee that Barbara Boxer chairs, and I'm the ranking member. I said, we shouldn't be having these. But let's go ahead and solve the problem, mitigate the damage, then let's start pointing fingers and see who to go after. But they didn't do that. They were using that talent that should have been down there figuring out how to plug this thing up here preparing for hearings.
And, Senator, I do not believe you and I differ really at all with regard to BP's responsibility here. I believe they have a responsibility to make restitution with some sort of a penalty. That's a kind of a biblical pattern. When there's damage to property, you have a responsibility to make the injured party whole and plus a penalty. I think we all agree with that, and I'm definitely 100% for that, and I've talked about that before. Sure. I guess I'm concerned that we maintain due process here. We had Senator Amy Klobuchar out there saying, hey, well, if we don't have the statutory authority to just take this money from BP, we'll just pass a law and create it, which would be a bill of attainder, an ex post facto law. And I just want to be sure that at least we uphold the rule of law.
I agree with
process.
That. And it's not just Amy, it's also Bob Menendez. He's the one that I've been objecting to when he is, and this is all posturing, political posturing, but they say that they want to take the cap completely off. Well, you can't do that, because if you take it off, any exploration that takes place is going to have to be done by either a national oil company like China or Venezuela, or if there is one or two like BP that are big enough to do it. we have a lot of resources, and of course in my state of Oklahoma, it's an oil state, we have a lot of people who have been down exploiting the resources offshore and shallow and deep, never had any kinds of problems, and there hasn't been a problem until this came along with BP, and I really believe in my heart that they did take shortcuts on this thing.
Now, Senator, we have just a couple minutes left, and I wanted to chat with you about Sharon Angle, who's going to be taking on Harry Reid in
I was with her yesterday, huh?
Okay. Well, and that's the reason that was actually the reason I wanted you to come on the program and chat with us about her, because I like what I see about her. I like the positions that she's taken on the Second Amendment, Department of Energy. She'd like to see that go away. The Department
Very strong pro-life.
Yeah, strong pro-life. And so let me ask you, you seem to have a positive appraisal of her, and so how do you think it's going to work with other leaders in the Republican Party? Do you think they're going to get on board with her campaign?
They will. This is happening all over. And I have to say this, that the Tea Party movement, if it's, it's kind of hard to define, but I'm all for it. My gosh, last August recess is when they really surfaced at that time. I remember going back and having a bunch of the town meetings and all that. Of course, I was kind of a hero to them because I agree with everything of their main positions, which are, and you think of Sharon when I say this, number one, they're concerned about the government take over the health care. Well, we lost that one. Number two, about the unsustainable spending, the $1.4 trillion that he's increased in domestic spending, just deficit spending during the time he's president, but also cap and trade, and then closing Gitmo. Those are four issues, and she is solid on all four of those issues, and I anticipate that she'll get a lot of help from those people that are the Tea Party people. Here's the problem, though. Harry Reid has unlimited amount of money, unlimited, more money than he can possibly spend in that state to demonize Sharon. She's a delightful lady. I've gotten to know her, and she'll make a great United States Senator.
Our guest on our Newsmaker line has been Senator Jim Inhofe from Oklahoma. Senator, I know you have a very busy schedule. I can't tell you how much it means to us to make time for us. Thank you for your observations, and God bless you as you continue to serve the people there in Washington, D.C. We need more just like you.
Well, and you're doing the Lord's work too, Brian. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you, Senator. Our guest